السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا إلى يوم الدين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Brothers and sisters in Islam, a Muslim who lives in these lands, who lives amongst people who do not share his or her values or beliefs, will always be seen as strange. We don't neatly fit into people's categories. And for that reason, sometimes you may feel like people just don't get me. They don't understand where I'm coming from. Maybe in your particular gatherings, people look at you as being an outcast or an outlier, and you feel that sometimes. You just feel different. Like, especially if you work amongst non-Muslims or you go to school with non-Muslims, you just feel different. And what's important for us as believers in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to embrace that. Not to try to fit in. Not to try to be like everybody else and make them feel comfortable because you are like them. Embrace being strange. Our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, as it comes in a hadith Sahih Muslim, إن الإسلام بدأ غريبا أو بدأ الإسلام غريبا وسيعود غريبا كما بدأ فطوبى للغرباء. Islam began as something strange, and it will return to being something strange. So tuba to the strangers. The scholars have said that tuba is fu'la min al-tib. It means al-jannah, or a great tree in Jannah. Regardless, Jannah is the reward for those who are strangers. The strangers. Islam started as something strange. In fact, in the beginning, a man came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he said to him, "Man ma'aka ala hadha ash-sha'n, ala hadha al-amr?" Who's with you in this affair of yours? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Hurrun Wyatt," a free man and a slave, referring to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and Bilal radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, because those were the two men who had followed the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam up until that point. This is discounting the fact that there were some women and children who had followed the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, including his wife Khadija radiyallahu ta'ala anha. One man, Abu Bakr, who was free, and another man, Bilal, who was a slave. This is who was with the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Islam was strange. When people heard it, it did not match up to their societal values. And the Prophet ﷺ was saying something that was strange to them. But that doesn't mean that even though the Prophet ﷺ was strange, it doesn't mean that he wasn't better. In fact, he was the best of humankind. And so, just because you are strange does not mean that you are not better. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has honored you with Islam should be something that you wear proudly. And when we're talking about pride here, don't get that confused with arrogance. Pride here means that you feel honored that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you with Islam. It is that pride that will keep you firm when other people want to shake you and make you feel strange about the beliefs that you have. No, embrace that strangeness and ask Allah to make you from amongst the ghuraba, those who are truly strange, those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has considered to be from amongst the strange, because their reward is Jannah. But who are they exactly? In another narration of this hadith, they said to the Prophet, وَمَنْ هُمْ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ? Who are these strange people, O Messenger of Allah? The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, الَّذِينَ يَصْلُحُونَ إِذَا فَسَدَ النَّاسِ. Those who are righteous, those who have salah. Not salah like you pray, salah, righteousness. إِذَا فَسَدَ النَّاسِ. When the people become corrupt. When you live in a society that is built on corruption, whether that is administrative corruption or financial corruption, or whether it is the moral corruption of society, you will be strange if you are upright, if you try your best to be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is what salih means. The salih is al-mu'addi li hukukillah. It is the one who fulfills the rights of Allah. It is the one who obeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is the one who has corrected aslaha. He has corrected his intentions. He has corrected his actions. He has corrected his speech. If you want to be strange, you have to correct the motives for what you do. Why are you doing what you do? Is it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, or is it to please somebody else? Why? What is behind what you do? This is the first step to becoming someone who is salih. الَّذِينَ يَصْلُحُونَ عِنْدَ فَسَادِ النَّاسِ وَإِذَا فَسَدَ النَّاسِ. Those who become upright and correct themselves and are righteous when the rest of society is corrupt. Needless to say, as Muslims in this country, we make up 2% of the population on a good survey. Other surveys or other polls have it at about 1% of the population here in America. That means that everybody else is worshiping other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or that they're not worshiping him the way that he prescribed to be worshipped in the Sharia of Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So what exactly does it mean to be salih? Let us look at some of the characteristics of the salih, of the salihun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us in the Quran, الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ وَيُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ وَأُولَٰئِكَ مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. They believe in Allah. They believe in the last day. They command the good. They enjoin what is ma'ruf in Islam. They enjoin that good. They forbid what is evil and they race to do good. It is them. أُولَٰئِكَ مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. They are from the righteous, which is an indication that those who do not believe in Allah and do not believe in the hereafter, just from a creedal standpoint, cannot be inside of the people who are righteous, which is the rest of society, by the way. And they command that which is good. Ikhwan, stop on this point and let it sink in. We have approximately in this area, this region, in Philadelphia, 250,000 Muslims, 250,000 Muslims. Why do we not have any cohesive power in this city? Where is our influence on the population? Is it because we don't command the good? Is it because we're shy? In fact, we don't actually want people to know that they're Muslim because we don't want to feel strange? What's your name, Muhammad? No. Just call me Mo, not Muhammad. Just call me Mo. His name is Waliullah. Just call me Wyatt. Sam. I don't want to stick out. So if you don't even want to stick out with your name, how are you going to command what is good, or forbid what is evil, or advise to what is right, and prohibit what is wrong? How are you going to do that? Because you don't want to be strange. Because you feel like being strange is being inferior or being less. And the reality is the strangers are a very elite club. A very elite group of people. The Prophet ﷺ said, Tuba lil ghuraba. That Jannah is for the ghuraba, for the strangers, not for the people who want to fit into a corrupt society. That's not going to help us. يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ وَيُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ. And they race to do good. They race to do good. Not just that they do good, but yusari'un. There is a race, as if you are competing with other people to do good. Because there is a competition for Jannah. There's competition. And there has to be that urge inside of you to be better, if not better than the rest of the Muslims, to be better than who you were yesterday. to race against yourself to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَيُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ وَأُولَٰئِكَ مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. It is they who are amongst the righteous. So what does it mean to be from the ghuraba, to be from the strangers? You have to embody those qualities of righteousness. And, ikhwan, be comfortable in your skin as a Muslim. Don't let people make you feel bad because you're a worshiper of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It doesn't, honestly, if you put it in context, it never makes sense. We are people who value education. Muslims value education. In fact, the first ayat revealed to our Prophet ﷺ, Iqra. Read, recite. We value education that is going to be beneficial to mankind in this life and the next. We value it. So we value the memorization of the Quran. Do you know that there are people, in fact, some of your neighbors, if you have non-Muslim neighbors, who look at you as being crazy if your child spends 2 hours a day memorizing the Quran? Are they wasting their time memorizing a book? You just open it up. Why do you gotta memorize it? And why is that book so special anyway? What's so special about it? Does it help you get a career? Does it help you get a nice big house and a fancy car because you memorize the Quran? So for them, because their whole worldview is based on this dunya and having a mansion and a nice car and a lot of money, for them, things that don't lead to that goal don't make sense. So you're looked at as being strange because you're memorizing the Quran. Your child is memorizing the Quran. But we in Islam know that this is a great honor to memorize the Quran. So in a totally different group of people, you'd be held in high esteem because they share your values. You won't be really strange amongst them because they share your values and they understand. But for the other people, they look at you as being a total fool. Does that mean you're a total fool? Absolutely not. Because it's not based on the way they judge you. It's based on what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will judge you with. And this is very important for us to put everything else in that perspective. Everything about life, we have to put in that perspective. Our Prophet ﷺ said, Inna waliyya Allah. Inna waliyya Allahu alladhi nazzala al-kitab. My protector, my guardian, the one who will help me, my wali, is Allah. The one who sent down the book. Notice how he describes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the one who what? Sent down the book. He is my wali who sent down the book. Meaning, part of his protection for us, part of his aid for this ummah is that he sent down the book. That book has revelation. That is what we go back to. That is how we design our lives, based on the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam went on to say, وَهُوَ يَتَوَلَّى الصَّالِحِينَ. And he protects and aids the salihin, the ghuraba, the people who implement salah in their lives, the people who are obedient to him, the people who follow the mandates of the Quran. And so it's important, ikhwan, that we make sure that we have an Islamic viewpoint on everything we do, that we don't succumb to peer pressure. Now, I know that a lot of you might say, I'm 50 years old, I'm 60 years old. You know, what do you mean peer pressure? That's when people in grade school left. That's not true. Peer pressure lasts until the end of your life. And in fact, if we look at one example from the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ, I want us to actually think about this. The person who aided Islam in the beginning, who protected the Prophet ﷺ, was not a Muslim. It wasn't Muslim. It was the uncle of the Prophet, Abu Talib, who never became Muslim, even though he knew that Islam was the truth. He protected the Prophet ﷺ and the Muslims with his status and with his wealth. And when he was on his deathbed, the Prophet ﷺ said, Ya Ami, my uncle, say a word. Say a word that I can argue on your behalf in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In other words, just say la ilaha illallah. You know that this deen is the truth. And he never said la ilaha illallah. And his reason was because he did not want his people to blame him. He didn't want his people to look down on him because he said la ilaha illallah. He followed his nephew. That's called peer pressure. When you do things because the people around you expect you to do those things. Or you refrain from things because you're scared of what the people around you might say. You're in a business meeting from Dhuhr until Asr, and you never step out to pray. Peer pressure. You want people to look at you funny. No. All you have to do is say, yeah, listen, I'm going to have to step out to pray. They may not like you for it. They're going to respect you. They say, that's a real Muslim right there. Yeah, Juan. Wallahi, we send our children to these public schools. They go to school, and not right now, obviously, because we're dealing with COVID, but COVID won't last forever. So you send your kids to public schools, and they go to school from 8 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. In the wintertime, that means they need to pray Salat al-Dhuhr in school. Are you telling your children to pray Salat al-Dhuhr in school? Or are you teaching them, hey, you need to fit in with everybody. You don't want to get bullied. Get bullied? What are you talking about? This is our deen. This is the bedrock of Islam. That we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we're not scared to do that. And everybody else has to fall in line with our way, because this is Islam. And we don't have to fall in line with anybody else's way, because they're not following the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The way that he revealed to his messenger, alayhi salatu wasalam. Ikhwan, be comfortable in your strangeness. Your strangeness makes you better, because it makes you a worshiper of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And never feel like you have to fit in with the rest of society. Maybe we felt strange last week. Last Jumu'ah, the whole country was walking on eggshells, anxious. Who's going to win this election? And the Muslims were, alhamdulillah, whether you cut their own lives or they'll say whatever lies which Allah decrees is what it's going to be. And we don't have the same, we're not stressed out the same way that other people might be. And we have a different feeling, and people don't understand that. People don't understand that. They don't understand our way. But we have to be comfortable being different. Ikhwan, brothers and sisters in Islam. That being said, I don't want to go into a long digression about elections. The scholars of Islam have talked about that. Our contemporary scholars have talked about the issue of elections here in America. In fact, the Shaikh rahimahullah ta'ala was here in America in 1999, shortly before his death. Allah yarhamah. And in 1999, for those of you who don't remember or weren't old enough to remember, 1999, when Shaikh Hussein was here, was the height of Bush versus Gore presidential election. And they asked Shaikh Hussein about the elections. And Shaikh Hussein, Allah yarhamah, said to the Muslims, you should vote. They said, should we vote or should we totally just divorce ourselves from the politics of the nation? And the Shaykh said, you should vote. And he quoted the ayah from the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Alif Lam Mim, غُلِبَتِ الرُّومُ فِي أَدْنَى الْأَرْضِ وَهُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ غَلَبِهِمْ سَيَغْلِبُونَ فِي بِضْعِ سِنِينَ لِلَّهِ الْأَمْرُ مِنْ قَبْلُ وَمِنْ بَعْدِ وَيَوْمَئِذٍ يَفْرَحُ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ بِنَصْرِ اللَّهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Alif Lam Mim, غُلِبَتِ الرُّومُ. Rome here, even though they translate it as the Romans most of the time, is actually referring to the eastern part of the Roman Empire. It's talking about the Greeks, the Byzantines. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, that they were defeated. في أدنى الأرض وهم من بعد غلبهم سيغلبون. But after this defeat, they're actually going to be victorious. Meaning the Byzantines, they're going to be victorious over the Persians, who were mushrikun. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, في بضع سنين, in just a few years. A few years is somewhere between 3 and 10 years, they're going to be defeated. That is, the Persians are going to be defeated by the Byzantines. في بضع سنين. لله الأمر من قبل ومن بعد. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the affair or the command from before and what comes after. In other words, when they won, that was because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed it. And when they are going to win, it's because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed it. وَيَوْمَئِذٍ يَفْرَحُ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. And on that day, the Muslims will be happy and will rejoice. بِنَصْرِ اللَّهِ, because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's aid. Who did Allah aid? The Muslims? He aided the Byzantines, and the Muslims were happy about that. Muslims happy about one group of kuffar beating another group of kuffar. But the Muslims were happy. And these Muslims were the Prophet ﷺ and his companions. And so the Shaykh said that through this we understand that those who bring less harm to the Muslims, we're happy when they are in control. Not in control of us, but we're happy when they are victorious. And so the point here is that the Muslims in this land, we should be in a position to recognize who is more harmful to us and who is less harmful. And if we are in a position to have a choice between the two, that we choose the one who is less harmful for us as a people. But with that, we don't align ourselves, as in our methodology, with red states or blue states or left or right or progressive or Tea Party because we are Muslims. We have our own platform. We have our own agenda. We don't fit neatly into one of their categories. And for that reason, we're strange. And we will never be accepted. And we have to be okay being strange and not accepted. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. أما بعد. Brothers and sisters in Islam, up until this point we've been talking about the strangeness of the Muslims in the broader society of non-Muslims. And the reality is that when the scholars speak about this hadith of being strange, that there's another context to being strange, and that is you as a Muslim who holds firm to the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ will often find yourself being strange amongst other Muslims. Other Muslims who do not necessarily turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam for guidance in all of their affairs. Revelation is not where their source ends. So maybe they take from this shaykh or from that shaykh, who doesn't necessarily rely on the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ in the way of his righteous companions, radiyallahu ta'ala anhum, and those who follow them with ihsan, and those who try to follow them in their way. And so you'll find yourself as a Muslim being a stranger even amongst other Muslims. And you have to be okay with that. We have to be courageous enough as a community to say Allah Azza wa Jal is the one who will judge me. And even if that means that other people will ostracize me, I'm okay with it. One of the things, Ikhwani, brothers and sisters in Islam, as we move forward in this city, and Islam has grown tremendously in this city, tremendously. exponentially over the years. But we still don't have the impact that we should have in this society. And a lot of that is because as Muslims, we've been taught that our Islam is right here inside the masjid. That's the extent of our deen. And if you see Muslims who, for example, create alliances with non-Muslims, we write them off. Oh, he's just trying to be a politician. Did our Prophet ﷺ not make pacts with the non-Muslims? Why? Because you have to live amongst them. The Prophet ﷺ, when the Prophet ﷺ made hijrah to Medina, there were Jews in Medina, but they didn't run Medina, but they were there, and the Prophet ﷺ had to live amongst them. So the Prophet ﷺ created pacts with the Jewish tribes of Medina, so that there would be some semblance of peace. Nothing in Islamic, in the history of the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ is clearer in this regard than the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. Allah called that treaty a fete. He called it a victory. There was no fighting. There was no fighting. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described it as being a victory. Why? Because through that pact, even though it looked unfavorable to the Muslims, what it did was clear the way for da'wah. The Prophet ﷺ was not staying inside of the masjid. Yes, he cultivated the Muslims in the masjid, but the Muslims themselves and the Prophet ﷺ made it a point to go out and call the people to Islam. But you know what's going to happen? We're too scared to call the people to Islam because we don't even want them to know that they're Muslims. We don't want to feel strange. Right here, Masjid al-Wasatiyah. Everybody in this neighborhood should know the leadership of this masjid. Everybody, every single house, the Muslims here, and this is a form of da'wah. We are the leadership of this masjid. If you ever have any problems, if anybody ever double parks, if it's ever too noisy, if there's ever anything that goes on in this community, we're here to help. The people of this community should know that. We have to begin to take Islam outside of the walls. We have to begin to form those alliances, whether it's neighborhood organizations, community watch, community policing. Just having a relationship with your neighbors, the ones that you can hear to your right and your left when you're sitting in your own home, because the walls are that thin in some communities. You have to have some kind of relationship with them. How are we going to make our society a better place? This city, 430 homicides to date? Up 40% from last year? Many of them being committed by Muslims, or Muslims are the victims of them. What are we doing as a community? What do? We sit back. Because Islam is right here inside the walls. And when somebody goes out and they try to form those coalitions that are necessary to create a better society, and we look at them as if they're strange. Be strange. Be strange. It's good. That is elite status with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Be strange and let the Muslims talk about you. It's okay. Because they are also not your judge. Your judge is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what you enact in your life is the mandate of the Quran. And you follow the example of Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And wallahi, if you look at the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, it was not a stretch of time when the Prophet ﷺ made his da'wah only for the Muslims in the masjid. That was not the life of the Prophet ﷺ in Mecca, which is what our lives more resemble because we don't have an Islamic state, we don't have an Islamic environment. And it was also not the way of the Prophet ﷺ once he went to Medina. But somewhere along the line, in this city, someone or some group has been telling us that Islam is just right here. That's not who we are. And it's okay if it starts right here. And they say that those Muslims who pray at the Wasatiyah, they're strange. Because they go here and there. They talk to people about Islam. They try to take Islam to the streets. And they try to make society as a whole a better place. Then let us be strangers. Alhamdulillah. That's a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be from the true followers of Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Wallahi. فَلَا وَرَبِّكَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, by your Lord, they don't believe. They don't believe. حَتَّى يُحَكِّمُوكَ فِيمَا شَجَرَ بَيْنَهُم. Until they make you, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the judge in the affairs that they dispute amongst themselves. ثُمَّ لَا يَجِدُوا فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ حَرَجًا. And then they don't find any resistance in themselves. Now they know that this is the ruling of Islam, and they don't find any resistance in their hearts. وَيُسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا. And they submit completely, meaning they implement those rulings in their lives. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from amongst who guide others. Allahumma zayyinna bi zinatil iman waj'alna hudatan muhtadin. Rabbana ighfir lana wa li ikhwanina alladhina sabaquna bil iman wa la taj'al fi qulubina ghillan lil ladhina amanu rabbana innaka ra'ufur rahim. Allahumma aslih lana dinana alladhi huwa 'ismatu amrina wa aslih lana dunyana allati fiha ma'ashuna wa aslih lana akhiratana allati ilayha ma'aduna waj'al al hayata ziyadatan lana fi kulli khair wal mawta rahatan lana min kulli shar wa aqim as-salat.